A 35-year-old mother sits in a crowded ferry above 100 barrels of ammonium nitrate. Some yards away, another ferry is equally loaded with explosives, but this boat is loaded with convicts. Kidnappers, murderers, their evil is nothing compared to this voice.
Tonight you're all going to be a part of a social experiment. I'm ready right now to blow you all sky high. Anyone attempts to get off their boat, you all die. Each of you has a remote. Blow up the other boat. At midnight, I blow you all up. If, however, one of you presses the button, I'll let that boat live. And you might want to decide quickly because the people on the other boat may not be quite so noble.
As an innocent civilian, do you blow up the convicts and save yourself? Would you face murder charges? What if you survived, avoiding charges? Would you be able to live with yourself? Should it go to a vote and risk wasting time? What if you don't detonate to avoid being a murderer? Does that make you righteous or more of a murderer for allowing both boats to die? There's actually a theoretical right answer based on math, which I'll be breaking down along with the legal, ethical, and practical implications of each choice and how it actually played out, including something unexpected. And after personally spending days of research and playing out every possible scenario, I found an obvious right answer that I'll reveal at the end. But why was this, hands down, the most evil social experiment ever conceived? First off, if you didn't recognize it by now, this experiment was created by this man, who wrote it into the film The Dark Knight. Meet the voice on the intercom. Although the experiment is technically fictional, its components, the choices it forces people to make, all this has happened in real history. Take, for example, Milgram's 1961 experiment, where a researcher tells a participant to give electric shocks to a student whenever they answer a quiz question incorrectly, with shocks becoming increasingly more painful with each mistake, all the way up to dangerous levels. 450 volts. Despite hearing them scream in pain and beg to stop, participants went all the way to the maximum voltage. The Joker's goal was to cast doubt that people are good, showing that people will ultimately do evil when put in a compromising position, like the Milgram experiment. It makes people come face to face with themselves, showing them the evil they're capable of. Milgram showed people will go against their morals just to obey authority, especially when they believe the responsibility lies with someone else. Similar to the Joker's experiment, the civilians decide to put the decision to a vote, which is risky. Do you think a bunch of murderers would hesitate to blow up the civilians? I don't think so, and I don't know how slow they'd be about it. With every minute they're voting, there's more risk of being blown up. Yet, why? I'll get to the convicts, but for now, the votes get tallied.
140 against, 396 for.
What would you vote? Tell me in the comments. Oh, and remember it for later, I'm going to play a little social experiment with you. Now that the votes are in, it's just a matter of who's going to be the one to push the button.
No one wants to get their hands dirty. Fine. I'll do it.
535 people sit and watch as he's about to execute their group decision to commit murder. Notice, not a single person on the boat, including the 140 people that voted don't detonate, tried to stop it. They just watched. This is called social facilitation. When you're in a group, you're more likely to do extreme things you'd never do alone. The pressure and responsibility is lessened because it's not on me. This guy's the one doing it. The same way, people put the responsibility on the researcher commanding them to continue to shock, or like the famous 1968 experiment, where researchers put participants alone in a room that slowly began filling with smoke. Everyone said, "Duh, I gotta get the out of here." But then they put participants in a room with other people who ignored the smoke and they just sat there. Well, everyone else isn't getting the out. I guess everything must be normal. This is called the bystander effect. The more people present during an emergency situation, the less likely they are to act. But here's where it gets up depending on which boat you're on. Let's say this guy does turn that key. He would have committed mass murder. In the US, that's multiple counts of first-degree murder, premeditated killing. We're talking death penalty or life in prison without parole. Even if you argue it was self-defense or duress, it would not be easy convincing a jury that blowing up a boat full of people doesn't warrant legal punishment. But let's say somehow you avoid legal consequences. You still gotta live with knowing you killed hundreds of of people. Sure, you saved your boat, but try explaining that to yourself when you're lying awake at 3 a.m. How do you go about your life knowing you killed 500 people, no matter how bad they were? Not to mention the handful of innocent guards and ferry operators aboard. And on top of it, what kind of social life or career could you have after that? It would get out and be all over the news that you were the guy who did it. It's the Monica Lewinsky effect. Forever, when you hear her name, you think of her as the woman who blew Bill Clinton. In the same way, you'd be forever known as that murderer. One thing I left out about the Milgram experiment: the screams were actually fake.
I can't stand the pain. Let me out of here.
There were no real electric shocks, but many of the participants experienced panic attacks or extreme mental anguish following the experiment from coming to grips with their ability to do such an evil act. That was very real. So if living like that isn't even worth it, then why would you turn the key? There's a philosophy called utilitarianism that says the morally right action is the one that produces the greatest good or least bad for the greatest number of people. If you don't save your ferry, that means 536 innocent people die. These people have family, kids who will be without their mothers and fathers, parents who lose their kids. On average in America, every person has 5.4 immediate family members. Times 536 people, that's 2,984 immediate family members losing a loved one, not to mention thousands more non-immediate family members and friends. That's a lot of anguish compared to the anguish of just you, one person. Or, on the flip side, if you detonate, that's thousands of people who will be incredibly grateful to you. Imagine if your spouse or your kids were on that boat. You'd pray that this guy had the balls to blow those convicts to hell. But wait, what about the convicts? Did you forget? They're humans too. Yeah, they did wrong, but there's a reason we don't just execute every felon. Maybe some people are at the tail end of their sentence and deserve another shot at life, even rehabilitated. Like 50 Cent was in jail. I don't know, he seems like a good guy. He's done millions in charity after getting out. How can you know if this man is truly bad or good or somewhere in the middle? Like, does one murderer's life equate to one innocent civilian's life? How do you measure that? In 2011, Israel negotiated the release of the innocent hostage Gilad Shalit in exchange for releasing 1,027 prisoners, kidnappers, murderers, even terrorists. So their scale is 1 to 1,027. Do you agree with that deal? If yes, I'd imagine you said detonate. In any case, that's what the majority voted. So here we go. Voting to detonate and watching someone do it, that's one thing. But actually turning that key, the literal act of exploding other human beings and ending their life, out of hundreds of people, not a single person was able to bring themselves to do it. But how about the convicts? Do they have it in them? The first time I saw this, I was sure that a bunch of murderers would have no problem killing. Someone was going to step up and push the button, right? Like, there has to be a murderer with multiple life sentences and nothing to lose. But then, what's the point of trying to save your life if you have no life to save? You're in jail forever without any chance of getting out. The convicts who are towards the end of their jail sentence, well, if they detonate, they go from having, say, a few months left in jail to being locked up forever. So what's the point? So now, I'm thinking this
We're still here. And that means they haven't killed us yet either.
is making a lot of sense. Except many psycho murderers don't always use logic.
Give it to me, and I'll do what you should have did.
This was a super important moment in this experiment. I mean, the whole point of the Joker's experiment is to try and expose evil in everyone and make people lose faith that people are fundamentally good. Meanwhile, even the hottest criminal can show morality, or so we think. I mean, now this kind of changes things. From a purely logical perspective, the best outcome from this point is that the civilians detonate because the convicts are doomed to die anyway. At least by detonating, they save their boat instead of being both blown up. But they don't know that. So let's rewind and use mathematics to determine the strictly logical answer from the start. Game theory, if you've never heard it, is the mathematics of strategy behind how people make decisions in relation to other people's decisions. So let's look at the civilians. If they don't detonate and the convicts don't detonate, the Joker blows up both ships at midnight, so they lose. Wrong decision. If they detonate and the convicts don't detonate, they survive. Right decision. This is unless both detonate at the same time, in which case both lose. Based on game theory, the right answer is you detonate. From a pure survival standpoint, your best move is to detonate immediately before the other boat can even think about it. If you don't detonate, not only do you die, but the other boat might die too. Everything goes vice versa from the convict's point of view. But the thing game theory doesn't take into account is that if the Joker's experiment got innocent civilians to murder, he wins. He proves his point that evil will prevail. But what if the Joker was bluffing all along? What if he never even planned to blow up both the boats? What if he was able to prove to the entire city that he never even had a detonator, and then one of the boats blew up the other boat when they didn't have to? That would be a devastating moral blow to civilization, knowing that he was able to turn people into murderers when it was completely unnecessary. Or what if the Joker never intended to let anyone live? What if this whole thing is just psychological torture and he was going to blow everyone up regardless? I'll admit that if I was in the heat of the moment on either boat, I never would have thought about those possibilities. But there's something that everyone should have thought about. That, for me, makes it the obvious choice. My ultimate conclusion from the days of research, exploring every angle and scenario many times over, is don't detonate. And it's not because detonating could lead to a life of mental anguish or facing a life in jail, or because it would give the Joker a moral victory. It's obviously not because of game theory, and it's not because of utilitarianism. It's because for the last several days in the city, there's been this dude in a fucking cape who keeps messing up the Joker's plans. Yeah, the Batman has been in the news and in front of mind for everyone. And sure, he didn't completely thwart every plot the Joker executed, but he's got just as many W's as L's. To me, you have to believe Batman is all over this. It's already a hard decision. So many back and forths. In the pressure of that moment, you'd be on the fence. This is the aspect that, to me, pushes it over the edge. Now, in the story, Batman does in fact thwart the Joker and save the day. So maybe that sways my opinion. I'm not gonna lie. As I was doing this video, at the start, it seemed super obvious. But I think after going over every point, this could be endlessly debated. So in the end, what actually happened? Neither boat detonated. This guy, despite all his tough talk,
Those men on that boat, they made their choices. They chose to murder and steal. Doesn't make any sense for us to have to die too.
he was that close to murdering 500 people, but couldn't bring himself to do it. The prisoner who threw the detonator overboard, he made the choice for everyone that no one on that boat had the right to play God. But here's the crazy part. Batman shows up and stops the Joker anyway. Imagine if someone had pressed that button. Imagine living with the knowledge that you committed mass murder, only to find out that Batman would have saved everyone anyway. You destroyed your soul for nothing. That's the most evil part of this whole experiment. The Joker didn't just test whether people would kill. He tested whether they'd live with the consequences of a choice made with incomplete information. So in the end, by each boat not pressing the detonator, civilization showed the Joker that evil didn't win, that people are good. I believe the majority of people are good. In history, people have been willing to risk their life for good. People have voluntarily gone to war to defend their country and democracy so that good will prevail. People have been willing to give up their lives to save the lives of others. Good people have also succumbed to pressures to do evil things. What really makes this experiment evil is just how much it makes you question yourself. It's easy to sit here and say, I'd make the right choice. I wouldn't kill innocent people. But would you? If it was your family on that boat? If you had to look your kids in the eye knowing they would die if you didn't do something, would you be willing to kill for them? In primitive times, if anything threatened your family or anyone, you kill that threat. No discussion. Maybe we've gotten soft and so morally righteous that we lost the primal instincts of our ancestors. The scary part is how we make decisions makes up who we are. So ultimately, who the fuck are we? Remember your vote from earlier? After watching this, comment if your decision changed or stayed the same and why. My little experiment is questioning if we can even trust our own instincts. I've gone back and forth on this so much. At this point, my brain is on overload. You too? Here's a video to clear your mental cache.